Welcome to the Spare Parts Podcast with FTC Team 535 Tobor. This is episode 4, Competitions, Inspection, Scouting, my.
Welcome to the Spare Parts Podcast with FTC Team 535 Tobor. Today, first of all, before we start our podcast, we're going to have a chat. We have now a website and also some other social media. So our website is at sites.google.com/site/535Tobor, Tobor, all lowercase, no spaces or anything like that. Our email address, please send us some emails. We would love to do something on this podcast where we answer some questions from other teams. We can probably help you out with a lot of questions you have. So send us an email at 535tobor@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter at Team535Tobor, and then we also have links to our YouTube page and our Facebook site on our website. So go to our website, sites.google.com/535Tobor, to find all sorts of information about our team.
Today we have a new member joining us for our podcast today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Lee Stockwell. I'm from Southland. I go to Crawfordsville, where everybody else is from on the team, except Link, which I think he's been on here before. I'm a senior there. It's my first year doing it, so I might have a couple questions that I'll be asking while you're all screaming at the screen about what your questions are.
Yeah, and so today our topic is what to expect at competitions. And Lee has not been to a competition yet, so hopefully he can provide a bit of perspective for other people that haven't been to competitions that this podcast is intended to help out. And on that note, there's some important news. You might think it's a bit early to have a podcast about what to expect at a competition on, October 17th. But the first qualifier in the country is on November 7th, and that sounds really early to me. I'm glad we aren't living in Arizona because the 2015-16 Flagstaff FTC qualifying tournament happens in Flagstaff, I'm assuming, on November 7th.
But don't let that, even if you're not in Arizona, be careful that you look up when your first competition is so that you're not caught off guard. So you're sitting around like, we don't have to finish the notebook. Oh, the first competition is next week.
Yeah, well, our first competition is December 19th, which I think is probably fairly typical. November 7th is very early, and there are a few competitions throughout November, and then really starts to ramp up during December and then January.
But we would suggest looking up when your first competition is so that you know and everyone knows.
It'll vary by state and country, too.
So when you first arrive at a competition, when you arrive, you'll need to turn in some materials that are relevant to the judging. So basically, your engineering notebook, and you register when you arrive. So you turn in your engineering notebook, you get some information about the competition venue, maybe a map, maybe a schedule, maybe a list of teams, things like that.
And that varies from state to state. And then after you register, you're going to have to get ready. So the next part after that is inspections, right?
Before you kind of go to inspection, you might want to set up your pit, or that's something you could be doing in parallel. So you'll go into maybe a school, whatever place is holding this event. You go in, and when you register, which should be probably pretty obvious to find, then you're going to be sent to some area that is called the pit area for FTC. And a lot of schools I've seen, that's been a gym, it might be some type of other room, but it's basically an area where your team and every team is going to be assigned a table, and then that table is going to have your team number on it, and you can set up whatever you want to on that table. That is what we call your pit area, and we'll talk a little bit more about what you need to put there.
The items that you're going to need in the pit, you're going to need a visual display, you're going to need, so everybody can have like a quick introduction without having to ask anybody about what your team's main goals are, what your robot looks like. You want that to be put out front and center so people know what to look forward to both in judging and in competition.
Yeah, and at these first competitions, it might not be that important, but it's always good to have a poster. A lot of teams later on will have videos that they play at their pit area. They might have lights, all sorts of very, very fancy setups, especially once you get to the level of super regionals and worlds.
And one thing to for sure put on there is your number nice and big, because when teams are going around scouting, they're looking for your number, not your name, so you're going to want to have that nice and visible so the teams can find you easily.
Mm-hmm. What kind of size is this pit area we're talking about?
According to the rules, it's 10 by 10 feet, but I think at a lot of qualifiers, at least, they just kind of give you a table.
So it's like a lab table.
They don't usually have as much space for all the people coming in. So like obviously you people listening to that can't see it, but just think of like a normal fold out table with the legs that fold under. That's basically what you have to work with. So that is a good point, is that if you do have a lot of things to bring with, make sure you know how to fit it on a table, because that's probably what you're going to
And once you get to upper levels of competition, they are going to start being pretty particular about that 10 by 10 by 10 foot area that you can set up. And I think at the super regionals, there are teams that bring tents and stuff, maybe even state competitions, that really do fill up that whole area.
You can even bring a cart to carry your robot around on and spare parts, so you don't have to walk back.
And that doesn't have to go on the table. That can go next to the table. But
Yeah. Okay, so then once you've set up the pit area for your team, the next thing you probably want to do is inspection. And there's both inspection and also the interview with the judges, which can happen in really either order. It depends on the schedule. So we're going to talk about the inspection first.
so the first one you go through is hardware first, or is it?
You have to pass hardware.
Yeah, you have
to.
to.
So you've been through a few inspections. So tell me, what kind of stuff do they ask for?
I have. So basically, it's really simple. It's you show up there and like they're judges and they look at your robot and they ask you a few questions here and there, and you're always going to like pass the test. I mean, like as long as you fit in the box and you follow the rules throughout the build time, you're going to be good.
Yeah, so for the hardware inspection, you need the bill of materials, which is a list that you can generate from your 3D model, which we'll have an upcoming podcast about that, or you can just manually write it out. So you have to list every single part that's on your robot, and also specifically mention on there what rule specifically allows each of those parts.
That sounds really bad, and it can be a pain, but remember, if you're using, I know there are other ones out there, Inventor, I know is a common 3D modeling software, but if you're using that, it will generate those lists for you.
Yeah.
But just make sure you have that, so you don't show up to the competition and they say, where's your bill of materials? And you say, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
Just helps the judges and also other volunteers make sure you're not using anything illegal.
Yeah.
No
And
fake thoughts.
that's required in the rules, and it's mentioned somewhere in the rules. You can find the checklists for both hardware and software inspections. So then once you're done with hardware inspection, they'll ask for the bill of materials. They might ask you about how many motors you have, about the sizing cube. That's usually one of the biggest items in the hardware inspection. But then once you get to software inspection, actually, we don't really know much about that, how that will work this year.
Oh, this year? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's a new...
Yeah, well, okay, so then during the before the competition starts, you can go in and submit a copy of your program for the control award. But I think during software inspection, they look at your software.
And that's... Well, I mean, usually they will for sure make you run some of it so that they can prove that it won't destroy the field when you put it out there, and to show that the program runs generally well.
So again, I mean, the software inspection we aren't quite sure exactly how that'll work this year. You might check the rule book, also maybe ask whoever's in the competition. But I'm sure, I mean, the one important thing to remember about inspection is that the people who are inspecting your robot are there to help you. They're not there to necessarily judge you and make sure that you kind of conform to the rules and maybe help you get there.
Except the judges. They're there to judge you.
That's accurate. So on one thing, Lee, when you think about judging, what is your bias? What do you think the judging will be like? So, like, for a lot of people out there who have never been in a judging session.
The only thing I think of when I think of judges are people that are kind of sitting off to the side and watching things that happen and then writing down scores. That's what I imagine in my head.
It's fairly accurate for the most part.
And that's usually during most of the competition, that's what they'll be doing, is out there watching how you're doing. But the judging session that you have, which is a 15-minute block, you'll be told when it happens. That is actually, you go in and you talk directly to the judges. You get about 2 or 3 judges.
Is this the interview?
This is the interview. And these are the judges that you'll see around, walking around during the normal time as well. But you'll get in and you'll get 10 minutes to talk to them. You can prepare a presentation and give that to them to kind of exemplify the best parts of your robot. And then some judges will just start asking you questions right off the bat. But some judges will say, okay, do you have a presentation? You'll present it, and then there'll be a question and answer period. One thing though, 15 minutes isn't as long as you think it is to show how good your team is to the judges. So make sure you prepare so that you're not stumbling around and wasting time.
And we'll talk more specifically about that in a later episode. Also, so then once you're done with the interview and with the inspections, it might take a while because remember there are maybe 20, as few as like 18 I think we had last year, to as many as like 35, 40 teams there. So all of those teams have to go through both inspections and do their judging interviews. So it might take a while, and some teams struggle with some of the inspections, like sometimes you see teams that go to the hardware inspection and they go back to their table and have to file something off their robot because it's too big.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad, because that happens to everyone, and especially as you get onto the farther on competitions and they're getting stricter, they'll have like plastic boxes, and if it's pressing out on the plastic at all, they won't count it. So make sure you bring some files. It'll happen. It happens.
Yeah. So then after that, it might take a couple hours, you'll go on to the qualifying rounds, which is actually what we might think of as the competition. That'll happen in some place where there can be spectators. So there might be bleachers. I mean, a lot of times it's done in a gym. There will be 2 fields set up. There will be bleachers or some group of spectators watching. And then the way it'll be set up, you will be queued. And what that means is that you're going to leave the pit area, bring your robot with you to the field. You're going to wait while other people are competing on the field. And then you're going to be invited to the field. Now, to make competitions run more smoothly, I mentioned this, there are 2 fields. Only one is ever competing at once. However, while one is competing, robots are being set up on the other one. So there is basically a constant stream of competition. One field goes while the other one is setting up, then that field goes, and so on and so on. And so at some competitions, and they really started to push this last year, to get people queued like 4 to 6 matches in advance of when they were competing.
And so one thing I think we're going to go around now and have everyone who's been to competitions, and we'll probably start with you, Mitchell, because you've gone to the most, just kind of give their impressions of what the general, like, I don't know what you would call it, the ambience, what kind of experience it is being at a competition. What are you thinking of? What's going on?
What part?
Well, there's just doing this competition part, doing like the scouting and competing.
Yeah, the qualifying.
Before.
It's probably going to be the most hectic 3 hours of your life, especially if you have a smaller team, because you're going to have to be scouting, walking through the judging and inspections and things like that. It's just it takes a lot of time, and some of you guys only have maybe 3 to 5 members on your team, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing you actually have a team. But some teams have 10, 12 members, so they can split up the labor a little bit easier. And so just be prepared when you go into a competition. Just be on your toes, because there's going to be a lot of things to do, and especially if you're going to a larger competition, there's going to be a lot more teams to scout. You might have a few more matches to play.
What is this scouting I keep hearing about?
I realized that we were talking about that without ever really explaining it. So, and you can do this. So this is actually something after you've done, if you're lucky enough to get like judging and inspection out of the way earlier, this is something you can do kind of during that lull time before competitions begin, while some other teams are doing inspections. And what scouting is I don't know, how many people would you say, like 2?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it just depends on the size of your team.
So when you're actually going out and scouting with however many people your team can allow, what you're doing is, I would suggest having at least a little list of things you want to ask. And kind of the point of scouting is that you go out and find out what teams can do. So you go out and you'll talk to you'll get a list of your alliance and the people who you're playing against, and you're probably going to want to make sure you get their information. But basically, you're going out, you're talking to teams. And you'll want to be, gracious about this. You're not going to want to go up and say, "Hey, what is your how can we beat what's it?" That's just you should understand not to do that. But the idea is you go out and say, "Hey, what is your robot good at?" Just kind of learning about the team. You can ask them, some more questions like where you from to kind of get more connections to the team. Try and find. Basically, it's finding out. It's like your first impressions of that team. So it's like you go there, find out basically what they can do. Find out, who they are, and maybe find places where, for some of the bigger teams, you can come back if you need help. So that's kind of what scouting is, going around and basically finding out who you're playing with, so that when you go to play with them, you know who to come back to talk to, basically what your competitors will be doing, and basically what your allies will be doing. And that's basically what scouting is for.
Yeah, and I mean the basic idea: learn about both your partners. Remember, there are two robots competing together, and your opponents.
And so, does that make any more sense to you, Lee? Is that
Yeah, definitely. It's more than I knew earlier.
And so, if we talk about just very specific scouting strategies for this year, I mean, it's good to have a list of the teams that will be there, and also to have maybe like a sheet that you keep in like a folder or a binder or a clipboard or something that you have for every team, and then on that team you write down team number, team name, what's good exactly, and it's good to be organized about that, and also to maybe have somebody in the bleachers watching the qualifying matches and counting up scores, keeping track of the scoring to see how well teams do at specific things.
that's the basics of scouting?
Yeah.
Well, how about you, Tony? What do you think something you should send out there for those rookie teams so that they don't get something they won't get caught off by at that first competition? What's something?
All right. Well, so scouting is it's easier than you think it is. Really, I mean, it just takes a while to go around to every single team. But you do have to make sure that you are keeping track of everything that goes down, whether it's sitting in the bleachers and watching the score, or getting to know a team better, because you will be handed like a list to see what teams you will be paired with later on, and so you make sure you want to get to know them really well.
So just make sure that when you're getting this information, you know where it's going to. You're not just
Yeah.
getting.
I would say probably that you need to make sure that you stay calm and level-headed, because if you don't, that's when you start losing ground and getting really stressed out, and that's not a good thing to do. You want to be there to enjoy the time, not to be scared by it.
And it will be intense, but just remember, it's like everyone there is having trouble. Everyone there is fighting to do it, even if it doesn't always look like it. So don't worry if you're having issues. It happens. So just make sure you're pushing through, not letting it get down on you, because anything can happen in 12 hours.
One thing I at least understand about these competitions, and especially I think it's during the scouting portion, people going around asking you questions, right? Like
There will be.
people, and you may not know the answers to these questions without research beforehand or anything else. You have to prepare to know things other than your maybe specialty, such as like if you're a builder, you might have to know more about something. You need to know something about maybe the design aspect, or just at least basic wise.
And that's So you need to know basics. If it's a judge and they're actually coming over, like specifically, how did you make this? Then what I would suggest is like, well, I know these generals about that, but if you want to talk to the specialist in it, go talk to X over there, or go talk to Y. And so it's good you need to make sure you know some general parts, but if it really is something over your head, send it off to...
X and Y are not featured in this video.
Poor Sabs.
We'll be bringing them in to consult later.
Okay. So Rand mentioned there will be judges walking around the pit area. That's definitely true at almost every competition, or at every competition. Judges will be walking around in the pit area. I think the way that some of the judging process goes, judges listen to interviews. They come up with kind of a list of finalists, and they walk around in the pit area and ask questions that they still don't have answers to for your team. So it's always good to be prepared for that. And then as the qualifying rounds progress through the day, there could be any number of them. Typically, I think teams will play maybe about 5 matches in a day.
So it just depends on how many people you have there, really.
And then, so once the qualifying rounds end, the scoring software is going to generate a ranked list. And the way teams are ranked is, so if they win a game, I think they get 2 points.
1 for a tie.
Yeah, 1 for a tie and 0 for a loss. And so then all those points are added up at the end to see which team or which 4 teams are the top 4 teams at that competition.
And if there are ties for those ranking points, so let's say 2 teams went out, and so they have 10 qualifier points. Then it goes to ranking points, and ranking points are kind of hard to describe, but basically the closer your matches are, and if you win, the higher your ranking points will be.
So if you win more close matches and someone else gets gets the same number of blowout versus you get close ones, you are going to progress into the top 4 instead of them because you, I suppose, had to fight harder for it.
So if you win 1-0, you're going to get a lot of ranking points, and you also get the 2 qualifier points. But if you win 100-0, you're you're probably not going to get very many ranking points, which is kind of bad for
I'm
you.
not sure how you would win 1-0.
That might be
Sure,
kind of
possible.
difficult.
All right, okay, 5-0. That's possible.
Okay. So so once we get this ranking of the top 4 teams, they are what are called alliance captains, and they get to line up on the floor. They get to look nice and proud there, and then you basically get to beg for mercy because you have to wait because they get to choose 2 other teams to be on their alliance. What does that mean? So each team, and it goes in order of highest rank to lowest rank. So the top ranked team from the qualifying matches says, okay, hey, on my team for the or on my alliance for the final matches, I want to have 535 Tobor on my team. And then the second alliance group is going to say, oh, hey, we want to have 9903, the Riveters, on our team. And
By the way, if you ever have the option, those are 2 amazing choices.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Just,
Just gonna put that out there.
Shameless plug right there.
Oh, and one thing to mention, this is kind of where, so scouting, you're getting information about teams, and that can kind of be a little robotic, but this is really where getting to know the teams you're scouting counts, because if you've gone out and you're scouting, you're being like, hey, and talk to them where you're from, then that team suddenly becomes an alliance captain. They're like, oh, wait, I remember that team. They came and talked to us and gave us candy. Let's pick them for our alliance.
Especially if it didn't do too well throughout the day. Let's say you got paired with a partner that maybe the robot didn't work very well, or they had a failure, you had a failure. It's good to have connections.
So I go up and like, oh, well, that wasn't our fault. We have got it working now, and you're great. You work great with us, so it'll work out well. So that's one important reason to build these bonds with the other teams you're with.
But it's also just good for gracious professionalism and for making friends.
Yeah, don't be too upfront. What's up, Tony?
I forgot. Judges will judge you in the pit area. So your interaction with teammates and other teams, they'll notice that. So always be on your best behavior.
Big Brother is watching.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true. Also, they will. That's another way you can get awards. Is by doing the good stuff, fighting the good fight.
No, you can get awards or get awarded. Both of those things work.
Yeah.
Alright.
So those 4 teams that rank the highest, they'll be picking 2 alliance partners each. I guess if there are few enough.
If there's
competitors.
less than 20 teams, they only pick one. But if there's more than
Which
20 teams,
happened
It's
to us
weird.
last year because of snow.
But anyway.
But yeah, so if there are less than 20 teams, they only get to pick 1 alliance partner. Otherwise, they get to pick 2. And then there is a tournament structure in which those alliance partners work together to play each other. And
Yeah,
so,
sock'em robots.
no, we're not playing BattleBots here. We are highly advanced.
We are more civilized.
Wait a second. Wait, did you hear that, Ben? That's the sound of nobody caring. I'm just kidding. I love you, Ben.
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
So then in the semifinals, the top-ranked team is going to play the bottom-ranked team. So the first place alliance captain is going to play the 4th place alliance captain, and then the 2nd place alliance captain is going to play the 3rd place alliance. And remember, alliances on the field are made up of 2 robots for each blue or red. And so the way it works is that you and it's best 2 out of 3. So all 3 of the teams on your alliance must play at least once during that 2 out of 3 match. So during those 2 or 3 matches. So during the first match, say, 535 plays with 9903, and also on our alliance are 6194, and then on the second one, we also play, actually on the second one, we'd have to play 535 with 9903 or 6194 with 9903. And then on the third match, we could go back to a pairing that had already existed.
And that's something you'll get reminded of at
Yeah.
the competitions. And then, so basically, once you've gotten through that, there will be a winner. And so there's a winner, and then there is a spot named for finalist alliance. Right?
Yes,
If you don't-
there is. So those I mentioned, it's kind of a tournament structure. So the first seed plays the fourth seed, the second seed plays the third seed, and the winners of each of those, and it's best 2 out of 3, the winners there play each other, best 2 out of 3, to produce the finalist, the winning alliance and the finalist alliance. So the winning alliance obviously won everything. The finalist alliance
Made it to the finals.
made it to the finals. Yeah.
Good job. And then, so after that, bulk of the competition is basically over, and what will be left is the awards ceremony, and that's where you get to go and hear how great you did, because you're all going to do fantastic.
Yeah, and so at the award ceremony, we're just going to quickly go down who gets to advance to the next competition, because that's really very important, in addition to winning awards, which is cool. Advancing is always awesome. So at qualifiers, at least, the host team of the qualifier gets automatically advanced in some places if they feel like doing that. I know in both Ohio and Indiana, I think we do that. I don't know about other states. Then, besides that, the second place, the second person to be advanced. And so the way this is going to work is at your qualifier, a certain number of teams can advance to the next competition level, right? Say that 10 teams can advance. So then first will be the qualifier host team, followed by the winner of the Inspire Award. That is a key point here. The Inspire Award is more important than winning on the field. The first place Inspire Award winner gets to advance ahead of everybody else. The next person that advances is the captain of the winning alliance. And so that's obviously the person that had to be the person that picked the other people on the winning alliance. And after that, it kind of goes in a progression. Then you have the second place winner for the Inspire Award, the winning alliance first team selected, third place Inspire Award, the second team selected for the winning alliance. Then it's the Think Award, the captain of the finalist alliance, the Connect Award, and so on and so on.
Are we going over awards in a later episode, or?
Yes.
I mean, we've already kind of gone over them today, and we will, and we did.
In more depth, maybe?
I don't know. We'll see. So a few different things about competitions. There are actually a couple different types of competitions, which I did not know about. There are scrimmages, which is kind of obvious, meets, and league play. I did not know about this one. So the rules say a league meet is a one-field competition with modified judging that uses the same field and game as other events. Teams may participate in as few or as many league meets as they choose, but participating in more improves their league ranking. Some of the standard tournament and championship guidelines may be modified for those regions that have chosen to participate in the league format. And so that just is a different style of holding competition. Then there are super qualifiers, which I think in some states there are so many teams that they have qualifiers, and then they have super qualifiers, and then they have the state championship, and then there are state championships, super regionals, and worlds. Yeah, Lee, do you have any other questions about competitions?
Thumbs up. Good.
Okay, then.
Yes, son.
Rolling out.
Thanks for listening to the podcast 535 Tobor. I'll just note our music is called Pangea by Professor KLIQ. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that we found on jamendo.com. That's
Clig. Probably gives a chance to pronounce Professor Clig, but
maybe with a Q.
Or Click.
Click. Yeah, it's gotta be Click.
Probably Click.
Anyway, he or she made our music, so thank you. And thanks for listening.
Good night, people.
Have a great day.